Emma introduced me to this tactic that we're going to talk about today that I really love because it's something that is a simple hack for you guys to put reflection into your life so that you're constantly improving. And it's something that the best athletes in the world do each and every day, the best business people in the world do. And we're going to talk about it today. And if you implement this, you will see improvement in your calls, in your sales conversions, and in your everyday conversations. Emma, what is it?
It's called game tape. Let's talk a little bit about what game tape is. It's what athletes do, right? Boxers do it. Football teams do it. Hockey teams do it, where once they finish a game or they're preparing to go into another game, or they're preparing for a competitor, they're always going to go back and they're going to watch game tape to make sure that they are as best prepared for the next game or to make improvements as possible. And I think we often, one, are not taking enough action to make calls in the first place. We're already scared to do that. But once we can get over the hurdle of making calls and doing that, we're scared of the sound of our own voice, and we're scared to listen to our calls. Like, oh my gosh, I was so cringeworthy what I said, right? But the only way to get better is to do, to take a page out of somebody else's book. And like, that's one thing that I've always done is look outside of our industry for inspiration on how we can make things better within our industry. And game tape has been, I would say, if I could isolate one activity that I did after making calls, like you can't just listen to calls, you still have to make calls first. But if there's one thing that you can do to really improve your skill set very quickly, it would be game tape.
Yeah, I mean, I see the biggest mistake that a lot of agents make is they don't look at ways to improve and to get better. And so they'll finally get over call reluctance. They'll finally be ready to pick up the phone and start picking up the phone. And they'll just dial numbers and have conversations. And continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And it's that old saying, if you continue to do the same thing over again and expect different results, it's just the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And, for those of you, I love the sports analogy and calling it game tape. For those of you who aren't athletes, like the best athletes, boxers, football players, hockey players, basketball players in the world, they spend time preparing for the game by watching themselves in game action, making mistakes, seeing where they missed opportunities, seeing what they could have done differently, what they could have done better, where they took advantage of great opportunities and things they did well, but how they might be able to improve on them. And I think that's something that almost no one does.
The way that I kind of look at sales, right, coming from sports, it's like there's kind of three things that we do, internally within the team, and then within the advanced program that we're going to launch for SalesGenius, which is basically like public access to get what we do internally within our team. But like, there's kind of three pillars that happen to like with athletes. And I wanted to kind of bring that into real estate training, right? So it's like game tape is review of your past performance. Role play is like going to the gym. It's like the practice, you got to go to practice before you go to the game. And then making the actual calls is like the game. So it's like, those are kind of the three things that sports teams do. And I think that we also need to implement those things within our businesses. So it's like the role play is either going to the gym or it's like, going to practice. I know Allen Iverson was like, we're talking about practice? Like, yeah, we're talking about practice, right? So that's role play. And then game tape is going back to be like, oh shit, this is really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
People love to, role playing is huge within the industry, and everyone wants to role play new scripts, which is the practice. But I'll be honest, role playing is kind of easy because there's no pressure. It's practice.
Yeah.
Right? There's not money on the line. There's not conversations on the line. There's not relationships on the line. And so role play is easy and gets really easy. And to be honest, because there's no pressure in role play, people don't make the same mistakes that they do on live calls, right? So if you go watch an NFL quarterback in practice, he barely misses a pass, right? He's just dropping dime. But he knows he can't, he's wearing that red jersey he's not allowed to be hit. He knows he's got all day in the pocket. Like it's easy, and he knows there's nothing in the line. He knows he throws an interception. Who cares?
Totally.
Whereas the thing I love about game tape is it forces you to see your weaknesses and where you can make improvements quickly. Whereas with role play, you don't even make the mistakes. So you don't get like, yes, you can get feedback like when you're very green, but for like, if you're seasoned at all and have taken some sales training and have some basic training, role play becomes easy for you. And because there's no pressure, you make fewer mistakes.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say is like having gone through this, it also is like, it's like this pyramid, right? So the biggest challenge is just doing the thing first.
Yeah.
And so especially when you're with other people and you're doing role play, you're like, I don't want to put this person like under the spotlight. Like, I don't want to be the person to make you feel like you don't know what you're doing, right? But the real beauty of the consistency and having accountability with doing this stuff is like, there's the first layer of don't hit the quarterback. Let him make his pass, right?
Yep.
But then as you practice more and more, you're like maybe 3-4 weeks into the season, you're like, okay, all of a sudden we're turning this shit into a scrimmage. Take the red penny off and we're going. So like you have to move. And I have seen that it's like the most beautiful beautiful thing within my team is that like as they get better, then the role play becomes great because then you want to push back and you're doing it in real time and you're doing it live. But to your point, it's like at the beginning when you're just getting started, people don't really push too hard. Like they don't want to be seen as the person on the other side to like play devil's advocate or be that, that tough competitor. As you do it more and more and you get better, you're going to be like, this isn't tough enough for me. I need a better workout. When I first started, I could barely do, 10-pound shoulder press. And now it's like, no, put more weight on the bar, right? And so you need other people to help you level up in terms of putting more weight on the bar.
I agree. And I think being able to get that like getting in a position where you're doing game tape with other people, like we all role play with other people, but doing game tape with other people, like the level of feedback and how quickly you'll see yourself improve is the big piece for me, right? Like you'll get the insight from other people on what they've done in those situations and what works.
Yeah.
Which you do get in role play as well, but like it's just not a real game.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the biggest difference for me between role play and game tape is like role play can only prepare you so far for the real game.
Yeah.
There's no pressure. There's no fans. There's no fans in the stand. And that's the huge thing for me. So what I wanted to ask you is like, how would you go about setting up game tape sessions?
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation on how many people like you should involve? Is it cool to just do it with one other? Is the more the merrier? Secondly is like, how often do you think people should be doing it? Like if someone's running a team, should they be implementing it with their team at the team level? Should it be one-on-one mentorship coaching level? What are your thoughts there?
I think I went about doing things the wrong way as a new team leader. And what I did was like, I spent way too much time trying to train them. So like our team meetings would always be like a training. And I'm like, dude, they don't need any more training. They need implementation. And so what I ended up switching our schedule to was like a once a month training and then 3 weeks of implementation to make sure that they actually did something with the thing that I taught them. And like, that's how I was able to actually get them to see results. So for us, we started lightly because again, it's like, I could throw you into the deep end. I just want to preface this whole thing with like, it's never comfortable at the beginning, but it gets really good. And it becomes something that you can't live without, much like the gym. Like if you've been out of practice at the gym for a while, like you're going to be sore and like, it's hard to like, you're like, I don't want to put on my gym clothes because like I don't look good and I'm not, you know what I mean? And like you make all this shit up in your head and then you go to the gym and you're like, damn, like I actually feel good. I'm proud of myself, whatever. And then 3 or 4 weeks go by and you're like, I can't live without going to the gym. How did I ever let myself go? Right. And like game tape's the same way. So to answer your question, the first thing that I would do is just realize that like you have to face your fears and do it. Like it's going to the gym for the first time. For my team would set at the beginning a weekly meeting to go through game tape. And then we started to do it bi-weekly, or we would do one game tape session and a role play session. And we basically got up to 9 o'clock in the morning to 9:15 role play session every day where you'd have one-on-one role play partner. You'd go on Zoom. I would send the objection in the morning of what we were going to role play, and then they would go through it for 15 minutes and they were on the go. But they just had like one-on-one back and forth. So they'd have like maybe, once or twice to kind of go back and forth and give each other feedback. So like that was the kind of cadence that we did, right? And I can confidently say like those exercises, the most difficult part is staying accountable and like doing it consistently. But if you do it consistently and you're like, you will see within 2 weeks, like crazy results, like way more results in your business in 2 weeks than you would see in the gym in 2 weeks is what I would say.
Right.
So that was kind of the cadence. And then I think you had also asked about the, like how many people should be there, right? We were only ever doing it with, like before we merged with North Group, we were only ever doing it with like 7 with Monstera. I actually found that that was a really healthy, like great size, because what we would essentially do is at the beginning, nobody wanted to volunteer to have their calls listened to, right? And so they would have to be voluntold. And I'd be like, we're listening to your call today. It's okay. We're not going to tear you to shreds. Like, we're doing this to help you. And then what you notice is like 3 weeks later, you're like, who wants to listen? Boom, boom, boom. Everybody's hands start to go up because they're like, I need feedback. Like, I actually screwed up this call this week and I feel like I could have saved it. And the coolest part about it is that those conversations would actually give the team the confidence to follow up with the people that they were like, oh, I screwed up that conversation so bad. I'm never speaking with that person. I'm going to make other calls. And I'd be like, dude, that call wasn't even that bad. You should call that person today. And then they'd call them back and be like, yeah, the person's my client now, right? And so it's like even those slight missed opportunities that you're like, I let that one go, to be able to wrangle it back in so you don't have to do that much work was like a side benefit. But like having 6 or 7 people on those calls where, essentially the way that we'd run it is we'd listen to a call and then everyone would make their notes. So we have a standardized note-taking template, right? Yeah. And then everyone would go around and I would go, hey, Ryan, before I give feedback as the leader to make sure that I'm helping you, what was your feedback for Mary? And you go, okay, here are my notes. And I'm like, cool. Okay, next person. And then we'd go through and be like, what was the common denominator around what our team thought the problem was? Yeah. What I thought the problem was. Because if the problem that they came to the conclusion with was the same problem that I thought, I'm on the track for all of my people. It's not just about the person whose call's recorded. It's about can they identify those areas of opportunity. And then from there, you'd be like, oh, this person is the one that actually needs help because everybody else figured out the problem and you weren't quite there. So like, let's listen to yours next or whatever. Right.
Yeah. So it helps you identify who is getting it and who's making the improvements, right? Like if we go back to the sports reference, it's like it allows you to understand who on your team is understanding the playbook.
Yes.
Right? Who knows the plays? Who knows what they're supposed to be doing when? Lets you know who has holes, who has gaps, who doesn't understand what they should be saying at one point. And it'll also let you know, I guess, like where they need improvement, whether it's like, tonality, which we love to work on, or, whether it's their neutral language, pacing, so on and so forth. Or, whether it's, hey, they're really strong on the introduction of the phone and getting people like into a conversation, but like their body and the questions they're asking are just not the right questions. Yeah. So they're not even able to lead into a close because they don't know what to say in a close.
Yeah. Or they're identifying the wrong thing at the wrong time, where it'd be like, sometimes I'm like, you lost the call 30 seconds into it. And everybody's like, oh, you shouldn't have asked this one particular question. And I'm like, no, your tone wasn't very good. So we got to figure out what the hierarchy or what the important elements are. And then I think the other thing too that's cool, and like this as much as I do, is like half the time you teach shit, it's also like you teaching yourself about stuff, right? Like, and it's like for every leader, and I think it's just like a slice of humble pie. Like if anybody tells you differently, I think they're lying. But like all the time I teach, and I'm like, I'm also teaching myself this because like I need to eat my own cooking on this a little bit too. And so I think that doing game tape in that capacity allows your people to gain the confidence where it's way easier for me to teach you about your business, Ryan, than it is for me to like teach myself. I don't know why. It's just like the way that the world works. So when you tell me, hey, Emma, I identified this in your call and I was able to do that, then you start to be like, oh, okay. But if you're going to listen to your calls, all you're thinking about is, my voice is so hideous. That was so dumb. I'm never going to get better at this, blah, blah, blah. But when you can teach other people how to do it, like, you really start to understand those concepts. And like, that's really what I wanted to get out of the game tape with the team, is like giving them the confidence that, like, if I'm sick one day, we don't miss it. And I know that you guys could run the whole session without me. And like, we basically got there. Like, I know my guys could run the session like without me being there. Like, without question, Amir, he could run game tape, he could run role play, and he'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's something that